Stan?
I don't like to sit. Hey, I'm Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Thanks for asking me to speak. This meeting means a lot to me, and I'm really pleased that I have some predecessors in the room and some people that were here really not that long after I showed up. And Joe, when I had what did I have? 30 days clean when you asked me to be your sponsor? Was that it?
If that.
Yeah, I was like, oh no, God, no. No. I knew enough then, even at that point, that would be a bad idea. And I say that I want to say that I today is the 17th, so on the nickel today I'm celebrating 18 years, 7 months clean.
Yeah.
And I don't usually start out like that, but I feel like it's poignant because, as an example, now I'm touching this, so it's going to have all sorts of noises on it. Joe gave this to me, less than 6 months ago or so. He found the business meeting minutes to the business meeting where I got my very first service position at 90 some odd days clean here. This was my first service position. I was a chairperson of this meeting for, 3 months, I think was the service at that time. We cycled quickly through chair people. But that was my first position ever. So, and this is a PDF actually, so you could just have that if you want. Yeah, he was all excited with it. So I've spoken a couple times before, and I guess the difference this time is that, and I'm experiencing like some actual jitters because I'm just not going to come up here and babble. I brought like artifacts of things from my recovery to share with you guys, because I've learned in the last few years that it's not my job to try to carry a message that's going to make you feel a part of Narcotics Anonymous. My job is to carry my message exactly as it is, because that's what's going to make you feel a part of Narcotics Anonymous. It's not my job to tailor anything. That's not what people did for me, and I think over time I sort of lost that focus, and I would tell a story that sounded more and more like someone that wasn't really me. So now when I share, I try to be as honest as I possibly can. Not that I was being dishonest, but I want to be specific about who I am and where I'm from and what things were like before I got here and why I've decided to stay as long as I have. If you're new, I just want to let you know that I don't come to Narcotics Anonymous meetings because I have to. And I'm not saying I don't have to, but I don't come to meetings because I have to. I come to meetings because I'm happier when I come to meetings. I come to meetings because I'm a better person as a result of coming to meetings. And when I come to meetings, I'm around other people who are working on what I want to be working on, which is becoming a better person. And we're not perfect all the time. God knows it. We're fantastic at playing you spot it, you got it, and giving each other a hard time. But when it comes down to it, there's nowhere else I can go where people are going to hold me accountable, whether I know them or not, which is both scary and wonderful. And there's nowhere else I can go where I can freely talk about my own private spirituality and about my own understanding of the steps and not have to worry about what people think of that. I got clean when I was 20. And so I never had a legal drink in my entire life. That was, I always wondered why we made such a big deal about 21. Like, oh yeah, now we can what? Do more of the same. Like it was not like we were doing it. You know what I mean? So, and I started using when I was a teenager, and I didn't use for that long. The first time I used was October 31st, 1992. The last time I used was June 16th, 1997. So that was it. It was less than a 5-year period of how long I used. And there was lots of things that I never used. And the reason I started using is because I was so sick of being me. I was so sick of thinking that I could tell that other people were sick of me being me. Follow that for a second. I was just sick and tired of not being able to behave and not being able to fit in, not wanting to know how to be normal. I can remember now, as a result of doing fourth step work, I can remember back to being 6 years old and hating myself, just hating the skin that I was in, feeling like I don't belong on this planet of earthlings who all seem to have some secret key to normalcy that I'm never going to get my hands on because I'm weird. And that was, and people told me I was weird. I was too hyper, and I couldn't sit down, and I couldn't pay attention, and I was awful in school, and I didn't have a lot of friends, and it sucked. It sucked being me, and I didn't know how to do anything about it. And I'm not saying that my parents didn't take care of me or that I grew up impoverished. That's not the case, and I don't have that experience. it's you only notice the bad things. I think sometimes is you don't notice that actually all these good things are you're being taken care of and there's food on the table. I focused on what was bad, and I had some chemical imbalance stuff that had to be addressed over time. That was not known at the time. So the reason I got high the first time is because I was interested in trying to be somebody different, and it was successful. It was a solution to a problem that I had. It felt good, and I liked it. And that's another thing, is I'm not going to sugarcoat what using was for me. It wasn't that it was all bad, not right away at first. If it sucked right away, we wouldn't keep doing it. It did not suck right away. It was great. It was great. And right up until I used, I was anti-drug. Right up until I smoked, I was anti-cigarette. Mm-hmm. That's how it is when you're young, and you're just like, no, I would never. Okay, once. And then that's it. Now that's who you are. You've completely changed everything in a day. And now that I'm a parent and I have kids and they're like, no, you don't understand. I would never do that. I'm like, I know, me neither. I also would never do that. But I did do that. Like probably a day after I said I would never do that. So, and I don't want to focus a long time on my using or my time out there, other than to say that it was bad. And I'm really grateful that for a long period of time before I got clean and for a long period of time after I got clean, I was writing a lot. I was journaling a lot. And all my life I kept this journal, and I still have it to this day. It's this binder at home, and it's this ridiculously fat binder of loose leaf paper and like receipt paper. When I got clean, I worked at the car wash at Delta Sonic, so like when I had something to write, I would pull out a piece of receipt paper, write a journal entry on it, bring it home, tape it to paper, and put it in the, it was just at all these weird places I wrote things, back of paper, I'd fill up the dispenser of paper towels at work and be like, oh, I have a thought, and I'd take the wrapper that went around the paper towels and do a journal entry, bring it home, tape it to paper, put it in there. So I'm lucky that I have this big journal, and I did the most of that journal is the year before I got clean and the year after I got clean. And that wasn't on purpose, it just worked out that way. And I believe in something. I believe in a higher power, and I have very little understanding of what that is, and this is the happiest I've ever been in my own spirituality. So if you're new or if you're not sure where you sit on the whole God thing, right on. You're right where you're supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to be, is questioning and wondering and finding what's good for you, which I continue to do. But I do believe that although I have no understanding of how my higher power works, he does crazy things. And so I have this fantastic journal of all these things that happen. And I think it's important because it's really easy for me to edit the past in my head. It's really easy for me to revise what actually happened. And having stuff down on paper makes it so that you can't do that. So there's no way to change it. I used to say all the time, I got my first service position when I had 90 days clean. It was like right around my 90 days. And then Joe gave me that. That's not true. That was not correct. But you just say it enough or you think it enough and you want it that way, and it sort of changes into what you want it to be, So for years I used to talk about how skinny I was when I got clean. I'd say, I weighed, and the number was just completely, it went everywhere from like 130 to 103. I had and it just changed every time I said it. I had no idea. But, and this is weird. Like, I'm going to do it anyways, just because why not? Because I brought the stuff. But, and I thought we'd be down, or in the room with the table where it's kind of small, so this wouldn't seem as weird, but I'm going to do it anyways. Because I wanted to bring relics. So I found, there's not a lot of these, but I found pictures of me when I was using. There's like none. There's like almost none. But they're skinny, just really skinny. So that's good. Like if you can't remember how much the weight actually is, just bring a photo. There you go. Now you can see it, and then you'll go like, oh God, that's skinny. So there it is. That's skinny. When I was using, I didn't eat. I didn't take care of myself. I didn't bathe. I didn't brush my teeth. I was frequently sick. They said that I had irritable bowel syndrome, but the problem is if you just drink all the time and then try to eat every once in a while, you have horrible gastrointestinal distress. That's not irritable bowel syndrome, that's stupidity. So that I was suffering from one of the many symptoms of stupidity that I was living out at that time in my life. But for me, a lot of the unmanageability, most of the unmanageability for my using was not physical. I mean, yes, it sucked to get sick, and yes, I got arrested a little bit, and yes, I got roughed up a little bit, but for me, most of the unmanageability was internal. Because everything I was trying to run away from by getting high eventually just comes back. You can't lock it away. You can't just pretend it's not there. And that stuff came back over and over again. And I journaled, and I'm not going to read a lot of this stuff because I just want to read enough to make a point. But I did. Okay, so I just said there weren't a lot of physical consequences. There was one physical consequence that was kind of bad. And that's this one right here on May 15th, where I said, I didn't ever write Dear Diary, but I feel like it sounds funnier if I say that, so I will. Dear Diary, I lit my face on fire. And I had bought a bottle of pure grain alcohol. It was cheap for $10, and I have this thick ceramic bottle with a stopper on it so I can hold the liquor. So this is my bottle that I lit my head on fire with 18 years ago. And I hold on to it because it's really important to remember where I come from. And it's really important to remember how stupid I was. And it was really important, or I guess it would have been important if I remembered science class. If you have a bottle of 190 proof grain alcohol and you cannot see how much is left in this thing, right? You can't, because sometimes I tell the story and people are like, well, what do you mean you couldn't tell? I'm like, I got to show you the bottle, right? You literally can't feel it, you can't see. So I was like, well, let me see how much, and I took my lighter and I went like this. This is it right here. This is the exact positioning of what went wrong. And this blue ball of fire shot up and hit me in the face. Well, let's be specific. Being the super genius I am, I put a lighter up to the mouth of the bottle to see how much was left. Woomph! That is exactly how it sounded. I burned off my eyebrows and the lashes of my right eye and about a third of my hair. The doctor checked me out and said my eye and vision were okay, but I have first-degree burns on my skin all around my eye and second-degree burns on the rim of my eyelids. Yeah, the next morning when I woke up, the blisters broke when I opened my eye. Not high anymore. Not high anymore. The night before, I was like, man, this kind of hurts. And then the next morning, it hurt more. So, and that was the thing. Like, after that happened, the very first thing I did after that happened was I eventually went to the ER. But before I went to the ER, I had to use more. Because I had to try to deal with how I was feeling and the pain and the embarrassment and the stupidity of thinking that, because like I had a fair amount of hair when this happened, and then thinking that I'm going to somehow make myself look normal by having them shave my head. So now I've got like stubble and then like pieces of just skin, right? Because when you burn your hair, it's not like it says like, how much do you want? Off the top, So I just look like a marble, right? I look like a globe or something of hair, like continents of hair and then peninsulas of burnt skin. And I did, I'm going to edit a little bit because some of the stuff in here is colorful, but my next line in there in very big letters is, I'm so effing stupid, which, agreed. I think at that point that's not a big thing. But it's funny because I thought that was why, because my old man made me go to rehab. That's what comes along here at some point, is that the old man says, you got to go get checked out, and if you don't want to, you can ask yourself how much of your crap you can fit in that little red car. And I was like, oh no, homeless is bad. I'll go. Right? Because I was a coward. I don't think maybe I'm not anymore, but I was definitely a coward. I was afraid of everything. I was afraid of normal people, and I was afraid of Dad, and not really reason to be afraid of Dad, but so I went, and I thought that the reason he was sending me to rehab was because of the bottle incident, right? That was the reason. So this is really cool because just a few weeks ago, I found out that was not the case. A few weeks ago, I was over at my dad's and I was talking to him about my sons who are now experimenting with things and my concerns therein. And how I look at things very differently than he did. He was not a crazy kid, so he let me be crazy for quite a while before he did something about it. Whereas I'm like, no, we're nipping this in the bud. We're not doing that. Like, I'm not going to let my kid take 2 years straight of failing college classes before I go, all right, now hold on a second. We're going to do a little sooner. And I mentioned, well, maybe if I hadn't lit my head on fire, you wouldn't have ever sent me to treatment. And then my stepmom is standing there with this totally guilty look on her face, and she's kind of like, that's not why we sent you. And I was like, well, what was it? And she goes, well, there was a day where you were in a hurry and you dropped some of your journal pages on the floor. And I was like, and she said, yeah, so she said, I read your diary. This is pretty much what she's saying. And you left them on the floor, so I was just picking them up and putting them back in your room. And later on, you were all upset and said, did you see any papers on the floor? Did you look at theirs? And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. But that's why. It wasn't because of the bottle. It was because they had read my diary, which I suppose at the time would have really upset me. But now, 18 years later, I'm like, well, all right, how'd you like it? Was it written well? But this is, and they didn't tell me specifically, but I think this is the one that they read that made them decide that I had to go to treatment, which is just a few days after I had, burnt my head, and I was on medication for the pain, and I had to put this stuff on, so I was all shiny. I was really weird looking. I don't know if you guys have ever had a burn, right? If you've ever had a burn, how they heal, they get all crinkly looking and sensitive, and the skin gets all weird, and that was my face. That was what I looked like. And so I looked like how I felt, and it was embarrassing to me. All that time I thought that I didn't care what people thought. I was one of these wannabe 90s deadheads with no shoes and the tie-dye shirts and the hemp and the patchouli, and I don't care what anybody thinks. Clearly you do, because the moment you light your head on fire, now you're sensitive. So, but this is what I wrote a little while after that. Not all of it, I promise. I'm alone. I'm always alone. I have a ton of friends who don't know me and never will. I'm shelled up like a scared turtle. I hate me. I have no drive, no willpower. All I do is party to forget, party to numb myself from all the crap I shovel on myself. I can see why all my old friends hate me. I hate me. If I don't finish school, then what? My life is bound for misery. I can't do anything right. Even the things I do best are half-assed. I can't do sports. I can't do school. I can't keep friends. What's going to happen to me? What's the point of everything I've learned? If knowledge is a car, I'm a dead end. How did I turn out so useless? Why can't I keep my friends? What does Cat see in me? I want to disappear. So it's good to have this stuff, because it's easy to say, I remember when it was bad. But it's different when you're writing that stuff and you don't think anybody's going to read it. You're writing it to yourself. And I don't know how much longer I would have gone like that. I don't know what would have happened if somebody hadn't stepped in and done something for me that I couldn't do for myself. And I remember that message for myself now in Narcotics Anonymous, when sometimes people that I know or care for, or maybe even just kind of know, are going through something, and it really seems like maybe they could benefit from something that I've experienced. But maybe they're not going to love it, but it's my job to say something anyways, even if it's awkward or uncomfortable, because we are each other's eyes and ears. We have to help each other out with these things. That's the whole point of getting together in meetings. We don't get together in meetings for the basket and the coffee. That's not why we do it. We get together because there's nobody else in the world that knows what it's like to be us. And the reason I decided on, my wife was like, don't bring your diary to the meeting. She's like, oh my God, you're going to read that angst-ridden adolescent crap in a meeting. And okay, valid, but at the same time, there's not a doubt in my mind that I was reading that. There's somebody in here who got it, who understood what was going on at that time, who knows what that's like. Yes, it's angst-ridden if your dad takes away the card for a weekend and then you're in there writing, I'm so alone, but that's not what was going on. I lived to use and used to live. I was scared to go a day sober. I prided myself, the way we pride ourselves on clean time back then, I prided myself on how long I had been high, how many days, how many years in a row I had stayed high, because I would do anything not to break that streak. There was a twisted pride to it. On some days. On other days, there were times where I was like, I'm ready to break this chain, and by the end of the day, I had changed my mind, and I was high again. So, I'm grateful she read my diary. I don't know that, if that was what it took. And it's funny, because Dad said, he's like, we read your journal, and it wasn't about the drugs, it wasn't about the, promiscuity and all this other ccrazy stuff in there. Because, when you're writing in your journal, you kind of just write everything. So I was like, what'd you read, Dad? But he said it was that stuff, the sadness and the depression and that going on. When I was younger, I had made a couple of attempts on my life, and I don't know whether, you look back and people say, well, were you really trying to commit suicide, or were you just, were you sending out a message? But a sponsor I had once, Phil, said it really well. He's like, dude, it's bad either way. It's bad either way. It's not okay, to start cutting on yourself. It's not okay. Your motivation is irrelevant. It's a sign of unmanageability. It's bad. Let's just say it's bad. So thank you, Phil. Agreed. Bad. We'll call it bad. So that's what Dad was afraid of. It's because before I started using, mental institutions for me came before I started using. Being in a hospital for psychiatric issues happened before I started using. That's part of my story too. And it's funny because I forget that when I went to treatment, I was in a dual diagnosis program. I swear to for the longest time, I literally forgot about that until I started looking at the old journal again, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right, I was crazy, or still am. So I'm so glad to have that here to remind me. And when with rehab came this, I think rehab probably did do me a lot of good, but it was, I think being here did me a lot more, is being around people who knew what I was going through. And I ended up in NA simply out of, this is where I felt more comfortable. That's all there was to it. NA was much younger than the other fellowship. And when I said, well, literally, but also there was just a lot of young people that were in the meetings. A lot of really cute people, too. So that was a motivating factor. Like, yes, we can get clean together. Yeah, I want everyone to teach me how to like me. Let's start with you. So I went to my first meeting high. And I went to my first meeting high because at the treatment center they said I could go home and get my things. So I went home and I got my things. And the guy who was supposed to watch me is like waiting in the car. Like, you suck at your job. But he had like 30 days clean. He was my strength. They send the guy with 30 days clean. Because when you have none days clean, 30 days clean is wow. Yeah. Like in a row. Like 10 days times 3. That's what he was. Which is amazing when you've been using, right? When you've been using for that long, that is an insane amount of time. Anything more, and everybody else is a liar. I remember being at my first meeting, like, you guys are so lying. There's no way. Because I remember thinking, some woman named Joni, Grateful Joni, I'm a grateful recovering addict. And I was like, God, why? God! It's like Monday night in a church basement, and you have, 6-8 years clean, and you're still in the church basement. What do you have? Why are you so grateful? This is bogus. I don't want to be here. Real terminology for the time. Bogus. Yeah. So, but I went to my first meeting, and I went high because they let me go home and get my stuff. So I got did my last bit there, and they brought me to an NA meeting, which was really scary because I didn't know what NA was, but there was some part of me that knew that I didn't want to go to the meeting because I was high, and I thought I was going to be in trouble. Like, when they find out I'm high, what are they going to do? Like, pitchforks and torches, I'm going to run out of the room. And it was important because at the time, when they were doing the key tags, they had all the things they say. They still said it then. But there was this thing they used to say, like, when you're tired of paying the high cost of low living and you're willing to give our way of life a try. They would say that for the white key tag. And I think Joni said that the night that they were doing key tags. And so everybody's like, okay, it's time to go get your key tag. And I was like, oh, I'm pinched. And then they finally said, anybody who was 0 to 29 days clean. And I was like, oh, 0! Yes! Achieved! I have 0 days clean. And I don't know that I would have come back to Narcotics Anonymous if it was a 1-day key tag. If you had to have 1 day clean to get your white key tag. Because for me, my entire life was just a comedy of errors trying to fit in with other people, the normal people, the regulars and the grown-ups and the civilians, right? Those people. And so if you had given me another reason to not fit in somewhere, I would have taken it and I would have left with it. But you guys made the key tag be 0 days clean. So I got to pick up, maybe the first thing anybody ever gave to me after the last time I got high. And so I have that too. This is my 0 day key tag that I still have. The ring's gone. It broke off today. When I was like, this is great, I'm going to bring it to the meeting, and all the tags fell off of it. I was like, oh, just you then. So yeah, this is my one-day key tag. And I don't know whether this is the first thing that they gave me, or if it was this. This is the directory that they gave me. My first NA directory from the Chicagoland area. And it has the phone numbers of people on the back. And guys, some of these people are still here. If you know Bob S., yeah, he's on here. He was at my first meeting. And there are a number of people who are still clean that were here, that were at my first meeting clean. So I'm sentimentalist. I keep all this stuff, and I'm really glad that I did, because there's something about touching it. There's something tactile about like the idea of this stuff being, artifacts from like an old life. That this is a part of who I am and how I got here. So I love having this stuff. And then I don't know which one of these was first and second. This was third. Somebody gave me a book, and this guy he gave me this curse. We do it to each other a lot. We do this horrible voodoo curse to each other. So what we do is he gave me this book, and I was like, all right, I got to pay you back because I don't want any creepy old man. I don't want to owe some creepy old dude I don't know. Like that could get weird. And so, he bought me the book, and I was like, well, how do I pay you back? And he said, you don't pay me back, just the next time somebody else needs a book, buy a book for them. Well, I don't know, hundreds of dollars later, guys, like literally hundreds of dollars in books later, this guy, I was like, I should have just paid the $7. But that's what it's done, is that I've had the opportunity to do that for other people, buy them a book and say, give it to the next person. Way before that movie. That idea of somebody just giving me these things. And I still have it. It's the wrong edition. It's not 6th edition. It's not in great shape. It's getting a little rugged. But I can't give it up. The first few chapters are the same, and there's phone numbers of people. When I got clean, it used to be a thing that everybody had their book. Everybody always carried their book around to the meetings and stuff. And it wasn't pre-cell phone, but I had a smart beep at the time. Right? Nobody knows what that is. That's how awesome that was. That was supposed to be like a funny, look at that antique thing he had, and everybody's like, what's a smart beep? I don't know what that is. I actually have the smart beep at home too, by the way. It was called a pager. Oh. Yeah. So, but everybody would write their phone numbers in the book, right? That was like a thing you did when you met somebody in the meetings and you guys got along. You'd hand each other your books and you'd write in it. So the reason it's so hard to let go of this book is not just because of all the photos and things that I've shoved in here over the years, but the signatures and phone numbers of people who are gone. Not just not coming to meetings anymore, but gone. My sponsee brother Don, rest in peace, who passed away a few years ago. A lot of people. Somebody just posted something on Facebook not that long ago. It was a picture of a bunch of people from the West Suburbs back in the day. And there was like 8 people in the picture, and guys, like 3 of them are dead, all from using. And it's surreal, but it's the reality of what happens. We get closer to reality, we get closer to feelings when we're here, but that's not a reason to stop being here. Recently, we had someone that we knew for a long time, Brian, pass away from his active addiction. And I saw a guy outside that was newish, and he said, how many more of these do we have to deal with? How long do we have to do this? And I told him, this is it. This happens. This is a reality. It's not a matter of how many people I have to see die. As long as I'm here, that's going to happen. I have to focus on the fact that I'm still here. And the reason I'm still here is because by the grace of God and because of the help of you guys, I didn't have to do what Brian did. I get to have a choice today. Hope is a big thing in the first step. And I'll touch on the steps a little bit. I probably have no time left. I have a little tiny bit of time left. I got to rehab, and how's the reading of this going? Is that lame, decent, kind of? It's all right, decent. Oh, you're such a sap. You love this stuff. I wrote. So I didn't journal. It's funny, the really important things, don't journal that. I read about it later, sorry, by the way, rehab, days later. But I did write this, I guess you'd call it a poem. Now this could be awful. I'm not sure anyone's ever heard this before. This could be awful. So if it is, I'm sorry. If it is, lie to me. Just at least make me feel good and say, oh no, that was okay. Do that for me. Thank you. Okay. I wrote this, I think the second day that I was in treatment. And there's lots of scratches on it because I was shaking like a leaf, I can stand in the breeze by a cottonwood tree while the summer snow falls at my feet. I may stay pure and clean, but I can't be serene because my angst is far less than discreet. Yes, I know I'm alive because it hurts when I cry, and I know when it rains that it pours. Would it be such a crime if I cried all the time? After all, ain't that what tears are for? If I open the case that holds fear in its place, do I stand to gain anything by it? If my day's looking down and there's dope all around, am I less of a man if I try it? I don't see grief as good. I would stop if I could. They say treatment will help if I let it. I don't want to tune out, and I hate when I pout, but it's something I God, I wish I could simply forget it. My feelings are green, my thoughts in between. God grant me something, just keep my ass clean. I want to clap this word. I just read it. I wrote that. I wanted to read it because that was the beginning of some sort of hope for me. When I was using, I didn't have hope. I didn't expect anything good. I didn't believe in anything good. I didn't believe in any sort of higher power. I didn't believe that anybody could ever like me or love me. I didn't believe that I was ever going to be anything. When I was using, I never had a future. I never had a plan. I was never capable. I was completely convinced that I had no value, no purpose, that I was absolutely convinced I'd be dead at 23. It was one of those things, like a superstition that I absolutely believed. And it's because that superstition got shattered that I very frequently challenge superstitions in recovery too, because we do this. We talk about how much our higher power loves us, but then when we say something like, man, I've had this microwave for years and it still hasn't broken, and everybody's like, oh, that's it, that's going tonight, it's breaking, which is a weird thing. That's a weird thing. Like, God's not a douchebag. He's not going to do that. Or, I haven't had a ticket in months, and then like, oh, you're going to get pulled over now, or I haven't been sick, now you're going to get, cancer. Like, geez, guys, no. Or the whole, we're like, oh man, I think everything's going to go good tonight, and we knock on wood. Because if you don't knock on wood, God will smite you. And it's just one of those things we get used to, and maybe it sounds ridiculous that I'm saying this stuff, but it was important for me to challenge this stuff, because honestly, if you think about it, for some people, they really believe that stuff is true, that if you don't knock on wood, something bad will happen. That's awful to live like that. Like, the relationship I have with a higher power now does not require me to knock on things or spit on things or not say things are good, because that's what it comes down to. If you say to somebody, I haven't been sick in months, and they're like, no, now you're going to get it. No, that's not. I am allowed to say that things are good. It's okay to say things are good. Now, watch, I get struck by lightning on the way home, right? But that's what everybody thinks. There was somebody I used to work with that used to go nuts because I would frequently say, as a result of recovery, I have everything I need, most of what I want, and things usually go my way, and I'm favored by God. And she'd be like, you can't say that. I'm like, why? I'm not comparing myself to other people. I really feel that way. I really feel taken care of. I feel like Narcotics Anonymous takes care of me and has helped me to be a better person, a better man, a better everything. And that's the hope that I got. What I think is amazing about Narcotics Anonymous and the steps and this program in general is that the hope begins almost immediately. I left my first meeting filled with hope. I went back to that treatment center and looked at literature and read things and filled out Am I an Addict? I was so excited about Am I an Addict? Because I thought there was going to be a key in the back that was like 1 to 10 answers. Yes. You know what I mean? Like a Cosmo thing where you go to the back page, turn it upside down, check your answers. I thought it was going to be like that. And I was irritated when I got to the end and I was like, well, if you answered 1 or more, you might be. I was like, I already knew that. Come on. That was weak. But it was some of the questions that were in there that really blew my mind, because some of them weren't about using it all. I remember there was like, did you ever use one drug to counteract, or did you ever use more than you planned? Yes. Did you ever use one drug to counteract the effects of another? Of course. Not how you do it. And then you get to one and it says something like, have you ever questioned your own sanity? And I was like, yes. Like, wow, weird, creepy, right? You know me. Like, this is weird. Is this a different one for the dual diagnosis people? And that was, but it made me realize the Am I an Addict pamphlet was what made me realize what the difference is between having a drug problem and a spiritual malady or a spiritual problem, and that this was more than just how much I used. It was why I used, and the fact that I felt like I couldn't stop, that I didn't have a choice. And the best thing that NA taught me at my very first meeting was that I get to have a choice. We don't often point out that the steps are written in past tense, but I think it's important that they are, because I am not powerless right now. and maybe this is controversial, but here's the deal. I get to decide between now and when I go to bed whether I get high. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I get to have a choice. I get to make that choice. But the moment I think it's okay to start using, and I start using, I give up that choice. And the crazy part is that it probably wasn't the decision to start using. It was just a part of my twisted brain that convinced me that that was a good idea. I just thought it was a choice. My disease sounds exactly like me. Right? It has my PIN code to my debit card. It knows where all my stuff is hidden. It's exactly. I will not know the difference between it and me if I decide to start listening to it. But this guy John B. caught me at my first meeting outside, and he took me by the shoulders and he said, "You know, you never have to use again." And that was so big to me at the time because I'd never heard anybody say it that way before. That you never have to, because I did. Because I felt that way. I had only been told that you can't, or you shouldn't, or you better not. No one had ever said you don't have to anymore. So hearing that and realizing that maybe there was something different to do with my life was huge. And so I stayed. And if you had told me at my first meeting that as a result of going to meetings, I would, get married and go to college and have kids and a house, I would have fled. I would have gotten the hell out of town. That's not what I wanted when I got here. That is not what I wanted. All I wanted is to stop feeling crazy. All I wanted is to be able to pretend to be like normal people. Swear to God. Not I want to be normal. Just I want to be able to pass as normal. I want to be able to know how to behave like the normal people do. That's what I want. I was so intimidated by men. I was so intimidated by men, with jobs who watch sports and have cigars. And I was like, oh, I have so much less testosterone than you. I don't know how to be. I don't know how to be like that. And here I am years later. I'm still not like that. I don't want to be. That's not who I am. I'm a nerd. I like being a nerd. And I don't know why I didn't know that then. Nerds run the whole world. Why did I not want to be a nerd? You think Bill Gates cared that nobody liked him in high school? He doesn't. It doesn't matter anymore. So realizing that as a result of being here. But what I am now is not what was promised to me by NA. That was not what was promised. NA promised hope and freedom. That's what I was offered. If somebody told me that one day you would have freedom from active addiction, which means that one day you will wake up and go to bed again and not have a using craving. That's not it. That's not the freedom. The freedom is waking up, you're on the other side, waking up, going to bed, never having a using thought, and then the next day suddenly realizing that the whole day had gone by. Not only did I not have a using thought, I didn't even notice that I didn't have a using thought. I was free, guys. I didn't have to think about it at all. I found out it was possible to not think about using for an entire day. And then more. And then more. Till it gets to the point, I used to think I would never stop seeing things I could turn into bongs. That's incorrect. I no longer see those things. I used to think I would never stop seeing people leaving money laying around for me to take. I was convinced that I would always have to just not act on these things. That's what recovery was. Recovery was, it's okay to have these thoughts as long as you don't act on them. That's what recovery is. I was wrong. I don't have the thoughts anymore either. The freedom is that I even get to think better. I even get to not obsess over those things. I even get to, I pass for semi-normal in crowds and stuff. I learned that when other people are talking, you're supposed to look at them and listen and not wait to talk. That was my thing. It was you're going to talk, blah, blah, blah. And then my turn. Okay, now I talk. I learned that, I'm supposed to, this is how you communicate with people. You ask questions to other people about, I know this sounds crazy, but I sound like I'm, K-Pax or something, trying to learn how to communicate with humans. But, my God, even that reference is too old. Oh, my God. It's a good movie. Go watch it. That was not an endorsement by NA. That was just me talking. Getting off the rails here, people. So I should stop. But I just want to say that I never knew that I was going to stay in NA as long as I have. I never knew that my life would get as good as I did. There's no way in the world you could have convinced me that a woman as amazing as Jenny would stay with me for as long as she has, or that I would be able to be a decent father, or a decent employee, or really a decent anything. So I want to stop, but I want to read one last thing, and it is the delayed entry from when I went into treatment. June 16th, 1997, the most important day of my life. That was a week ago. I'm writing now in my. Oh, by the way, it was a really snazzy rehab, so don't hate. I'm writing now in my apartment at Four Lakes Complex, which I share with 3 other recovering druggies. That's right, I'm in rehab. I haven't touched a chemical since Sunday, the day before I was admitted to Rush Behavioral Health Center. I write this with a newfound hope and a drive to stay sober. My greatest dream has come true. I now have the help I need to make my life worthwhile, maybe even spectacular. I'm in treatment here at Rush, and I regularly attend Narcotics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I'm an addict. Thanks, Dad. Thank you.